today's debate, I feel, proposition has taken a very naive view. What they think the most important issue in today's debate is, they're telling us, look, war is inevitable. All these wars are going to happen. And they think the only question in today's debate is, what's the most effective way we can conduct this war? And that is fundamentally the wrong question we're asking in today's debate. The true question we need to ask ourselves is whether the actual mechanism of having drones, supporting the use of drones, will change the nature of warfare such that more wars will happen, such that different wars will happen. They're looking at the micro scale. They came here and told us, look, in one particular case, a drone may kill less people than a land invasion. But what if there are more cases of these drones happening because of the incentive analysis that we have done and that I will expand upon? But furthermore than that, I'm going to be showing you why countries do in fact have these incentives to conduct more war. So let me start with that. They told us, look, there's three main things why countries wouldn't want to do more war. They said there are disincentives, other countries will place sanctions on them, and no thank you, and that they are beginning to regulate. So let me start with the first one, of disincentives. And I believe that there are disincentives to war. And the greatest disincentives to war are in the status quo. They came up and told us, look, drones are cheap, drones are awesome, drones don't kill our own people. Those are the disincentives countries have in the status quo, not to go and engage in those wars. If you tell us drones are so great and cheap, then these disincentives are fundamentally diminished. No thank you, Emma. Secondly, on this point of sanctions, let us consider the actual countries that have these drones. We spoke about the superpowers. At the moment, the most prolific user of drones is the USA. Perhaps other users in the future will be the other superpowers in the world. These are countries that don't need to fear sanctions. No country, USA has been conducting wars all over the world since the end of World War II, and they have not yet been effectively sanctioned by any country anywhere in the world. Sanctions will not regulate the US's use of drone strikes. Thirdly, in terms of rules and legitimacy within the US government domestically, no thank you, Emma. Within the US government domestically, there's absolutely no guarantee that this legislation will be passed to make drone strikes effective in the future. Secondly, because of the secretive nature of drone strikes, even if they pass legislation, how can we ensure that we'll follow this legislation? And thirdly, over and above that, even if this legislation was coming in the future, we feel that it's absolutely unacceptable to wait for this to happen while drone strikes are happening and killing people because of this lack of regulation. No, thank you. Okay, and now, so their only real response was, look, war is necessary. But now cases are becoming far in the modern climate. No, thank you. In the modern climate, cases are becoming far less necessary. And they brought up this case of land invasions, okay? They said, look, land invasions have far more casualties than drone strikes. But they're fundamentally confusing two completely different things. You're confusing military operations with the initiation of wars. They're completely different things. When you go in to wage a war, that's when you conduct these massive land invasions. These sort of things happen maybe once every 10 years, once every 15 years. Drone strike missions are small operations that happen constantly and continuously and without deterrence. And that is why these figures cannot be completely comparable. Yes, Anna? Even
if what you were saying was true, and we do get more wars, because these wars don't harm civilians, are they as harmful?
Okay, thank you, Emma. They don't harm civilians. We just told you about how all these wars harm civilians of the other countries. You seem only to care about the civilians of America, which is what I'm going to get onto right now. I'm going to be speaking about government obligation right now, okay? Now, you say government only has the obligation to protect its own people. That is fundamentally incorrect. US can't just be the world police, go all over the world, pillage villages and kill civilians because they claim it's protecting their own people. That's just not what's happening anyway. That's just not happening anyway. Afghanistan isn't sending an invading force to go attack American citizens. There have been 1 or 2 terrorist attacks from remote groups that aren't even directly attached to countries over the past years. America isn't actually protecting huge wars happening on American soil. They're going and invading Middle Eastern countries because they think they are the world police. They aren't protecting their own civilians in these instances. They don't have the duty. There is no necessity. Now, To move on to my points of positive matter. Firstly, I'm going to be speaking about the psychological effects that drone strikes have on three different parties. For the pilots, for the public, and for the citizens that they affect in the countries that are being invaded. So let me start with the pilots. They said it's so much better for the pilots because they're objective. And I feel, in fact, that they may care too little. Because they feel disconnected from this theatre of war, they aren't emotionally attached, they can't see the people there. It's as if they're playing a video game. They see these people on the screen, they press the button, the people die. That is what happens. We feel there's less accountability in these instances. We also believe, even if that isn't true, drone strike pilots are actually psychologically harmed eventually. Studies have shown that eventually they suffer many sorts of existential crises when they feel that they can't understand how they can simply end so many people's lives without any direct connection to them, and it's a real problem. Secondly, for the general public, there's a huge psychological harm in that it glorifies warfare and violence. There's a new phenomenon on the internet known as drone porn, which is clips that are uploaded to YouTube which show drones flying around and killing people that people watch, they comment, oh, that looks so awesome, and we feel it really glorifies warfare and violence in the modern society, which is something we will never want to support. Thirdly, there's a negative perception and psychological harm for the citizens in that country where you're invading. In fact, you brought up the point that we need cooperation from the people within those countries. Have you noticed the world perception is that people really, really hate drones. They don't like the fact that drones are constantly flying over their cities, surveying their every move, and being this omnipotent power over them for every second of their daily lives. And this is even different to an invading force when there's a personal connection. When there's a soldier walking down the road, you can speak to him, you can see his face, he is a person. It's not this disconnected mechanical monstrosity that is constantly surveying your every move. And people just simply can't contextualize that. There's massive fear, there's massive psychological harm, especially in the sort of rural environments that they invade in terms of Afghanistan, etc. Lastly, I'm going to be speaking about international diplomacy. So, even if they are effective in taking out the individual targets in those missions, we feel that there's a huge negative perception against drones, which breeds more enemies towards the US, which creates huge harms in that manner. Also, because there isn't cooperation, as I've just spoken about, we feel that they don't create sustainable peace. And because there aren't those ground forces there that can set up institutions and can set up infrastructure, they don't have the ability to sustain peace within that country once a drone strike will happen. It's just a continuous, unresolvable cycle. Secondly, we believe it makes illegitimate invasions easier, because you can do it covertly, it violates the sovereignty of countries and it violates the sovereignty of their airspace, and it weakens the already tenuous international relations we have in modern society. So, what have we seen? We've seen that drones do not only change the way we conduct war, but it changes why we conduct war, when we conduct war, and it's fundamentally more harmful for the global community and the citizens. And for these reasons, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.